Have you ever woken up at 3 in the afternoon, sunlight already fading through your curtains, that specific weight settling into your chest the moment consciousness returns? The weight that comes from knowing the world has been moving without you, that people have been productive and purposeful while you were somewhere else entirely unreachable? You reach for your phone and see the messages that came in hours ago, the casual good morning texts that are now embarrassingly obsolete, and you feel that familiar mix of guilt and something else, something harder to name, as you realize that once again your body chose sleep over participation, rest over contribution, and you don't entirely know why. And yet inside you, there's a strange absence of refreshment. Despite sleeping 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours, you don't wake energized. You wake heavy. The sleep wasn't restorative in the way it's supposed to be. It was more like a place you went to hide, a state your body insisted upon even when your mind knew it would cost you. The job interview you'd have to reschedule, the brunch invitation you'd decline with another weak excuse, the growing sense that you're disappointing everyone, including yourself. But underneath the guilt, there's something more honest. You needed this. Your body demanded it. And some part of you chose it, even knowing the consequences. You wonder if something is wrong with you. Depression, maybe that's what everyone suggests when they hear about your sleep patterns, their voices careful and concerned. Or laziness, which is what you suspect they're really thinking, the diagnosis you levy against yourself in your harshest moments. You see the articles about sleep hygiene and circadian rhythms, the motivational content about waking up at 5 a.m., the subtle cultural messaging that equates early rising with virtue and excessive sleep with moral failure. You've tried the strategies. The alarm across the room, the gradual schedule adjustments, the promises to yourself that tomorrow will be different. And yet your body keeps choosing this disappearing act, this retreat into unconsciousness that feels less like rest and more like necessary absence. But what if this isn't laziness? What if this isn't even primarily about depression, though that might live alongside it? What if excessive sleep is a language your nervous system speaks when it has something crucial to say? Something about your capacity, your history, your fundamental need for a specific kind of safety that waking life hasn't been providing? What if the people who sleep all day aren't failing at life, but rather succeeding at a different, more primal task? The task of survival in a world that has asked too much for too long. You're about to discover why your body chooses disappearance, what excessive sleep is actually protecting you from, and why the shame you carry about it might be the most exhausting burden of all. When someone asks what you did yesterday and your honest answer is, slept, you can feel the air change. There's a pause, a recalibration happening behind their eyes as they try to determine if you're joking, if you're sick, or if this is something they should be worried about. All day? They ask, and the question carries weight. Concern, yes, but also judgment, confusion, the unspoken assessment of whether you're someone who has their life together. The socially acceptable answer would involve productivity, movement, engagement with the waking world. Your answer reveals that you've opted out, and in a culture that worships activity, opting out looks like failure. They think you're lazy. They think you're unmotivated, depressed, wasting your potential, avoiding responsibility, lacking discipline. They imagine you making the choice to hit snooze repeatedly, consciously selecting unconsciousness over opportunity, and they wonder why you can't just get up like everyone else. Some of them suggest solutions, earlier bedtimes, exercise routines, vitamin D supplements, apps that track your sleep cycles. Others offer gentler concern, asking if you've considered therapy or medication, their tone implying that surely you must want to fix this, that no one would choose to sleep their life away voluntarily. The underlying assumption in all of it is the same. Excessive sleep is a problem, a symptom of something broken, a pattern that needs correction. What's rarely considered is that sleep might be serving you. Not in the way normal, restorative sleep serves people, that 8-hour cycle that prepares you for another day of engagement, but in a different way entirely. What if excessive sleep isn't avoidance but protection? What if it's not escape but recuperation from something most people don't have to recuperate from? The lack of visible productivity is interpreted as emptiness, as wasted time, as nothing happening. But inside the body of someone who sleeps all day, something crucial is happening. The nervous system is trying desperately to repair itself, to discharge accumulated stress, to create enough distance from the demands of consciousness that survival feels possible again. This isn't depression, though depression might also be present. This is regulation. This is a nervous system that has learned that shutdown is safer than activation. To understand this, we have to step back to the fundamental architecture of the human nervous system and its evolutionary mandate: keep you alive. For most of human history, survival meant responding appropriately to threat, fighting when you could win, fleeing when you couldn't, and when neither option was available, shutting down entirely. This third response, what psychologists call the dorsal vagal response, is the body's most primitive survival strategy. Freeze, collapse, conserve energy, become undetectable. In the face of inescapable threat, the nervous system essentially takes you offline. Heart rate drops, digestion halts, consciousness dims. It's the physiological equivalent of playing dead. And for our ancestors facing predators they couldn't outrun, it sometimes saved their lives. Inside your brain, the autonomic nervous system governs this process through two primary branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which activates you for fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms you back down. But there's a crucial subdivision most people don't know about. The parasympathetic system has two pathways: the ventral vagal pathway, which creates calm, connected presence, the state where you feel safe, social, engaged, and the dorsal vagal pathway, which creates shutdown, disconnection, and the conservation mode we just described. When your nervous system perceives that the world is too dangerous for engagement and too inescapable for flight, it activates this dorsal pathway. And one of its primary manifestations is hypersomnia, excessive, sometimes nearly irresistible sleep. For many people, stress activates energy. Their sympathetic nervous system responds to pressure with adrenaline and cortisol, driving them to work longer, push harder, accomplish more. But for you, chronic stress might do something different. When the nervous system has been activated too intensely or for too long, when threat has been sustained past the point where fighting or fleeing seems possible, the system tips over into shutdown. Neurologically, here's what happens. The brain begins interpreting wakefulness itself as dangerous, as an exposure to demands and stimuli that you don't have the resources to meet. Sleep becomes not just rest but refuge, not just recovery but the only state where your nervous system can achieve what it desperately needs: a complete cessation of demands. Your body isn't choosing sleep because it's tired in the normal sense. It's choosing sleep because consciousness has become unsustainable. Long before most people learn healthy stress regulation, some children learn something else instead. They learn that their feelings are too much, that their needs overwhelm the adults around them, that expressing distress makes situations worse rather than better. Maybe you grew up in an environment where emotional expression was met with anger, dismissal, or emotional flooding from a parent who couldn't regulate themselves. Maybe the adults in your life were dealing with their own trauma, addiction, mental illness, or simply the grinding stress of poverty, and your needs became one more impossible demand in an already overwhelming existence. You learned, as children do, to minimize yourself. You learned that the safest version of you was the quietest, the least needy, the one who didn't add to the chaos. But here's what happens in a developing nervous system when a child learns that their distress won't be met with comfort. The system never learns healthy regulation. Normally, when a child experiences fear or pain and a caregiver responds with soothing presence, the child's nervous system learns to return from activation to calm. This process, repeated thousands of times, builds the neural pathways for self-regulation. But when soothing doesn't come, or worse, when expressing distress brings more threat, the nervous system learns a different pattern. It learns to skip the expression phase entirely and move straight to shutdown. It learns that the safest response to overwhelm is disappearance, emotional at first and later, as the pattern deepens, physical. Sleep becomes the ultimate disappearing act, the place where you can't be demanded from, where you can't disappoint anyone, where existence itself is temporarily paused. When you grow up in an environment where vigilance is required, where moods are unpredictable, where safety is conditional, where you never quite know what version of your caregivers you'll encounter, your nervous system adapts by staying in a constant state of low-level activation. You become a child who reads rooms, who monitors adult faces for signs of danger, who learns to detect shifts in emotional climate, the way animals sense approaching storms. This hypervigilance is brilliant adaptation in the short term. It keeps you safe in an unsafe environment. But it comes with a cost that doesn't present its bill until later. A nervous system in chronic activation burns through energy at an unsustainable rate. It's like running your computer on high-performance mode all the time. Eventually, the battery drains, the system overheats, and shutdown becomes not optional but inevitable. This is why excessive sleep often doesn't appear until adolescence or adulthood. As a child, the vigilance was necessary and adrenaline kept you running. But as you age, as the immediate survival requirements ease, the nervous system finally presents the bill for all those years of hyperactivation. The shutdown you couldn't afford as a child, when you needed to stay alert to stay safe, becomes the pattern that dominates your adulthood. Your body is essentially saying, "We survived, but barely. Now we need to rest in a way we've never been able to rest before." The sleep isn't laziness. It's accumulated debt. It's your nervous system trying to complete a regulation cycle that was interrupted decades ago, trying to find a bottom to a well of exhaustion that was dug in childhood. This is why you can sleep for 12 hours and wake up still tired. True restorative sleep happens when the nervous system feels safe enough to cycle through all its natural stages: light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and back again, in a rhythm that allows for genuine restoration. But when your baseline state is dorsal vagal shutdown, when sleep is less about restoration and more about escape, the architecture of sleep itself changes. Your body is using unconsciousness as a regulation strategy, not as a recovery process. It's like the difference between a phone that's charging properly and one that's in low-power mode to prevent complete shutdown. Technically, it's preserving battery, but it's not actually replenishing resources. The sleep serves the purpose of keeping you offline, of protecting you from the overwhelm of waking demands, but it doesn't restore capacity because restoration requires a sense of safety that your nervous system hasn't established. This pattern also explains the guilt you feel about sleeping. On some level, you know this isn't normal tiredness. You know other people sleep 8 hours and feel ready for the day, while you sleep twice that and feel like you're moving through water. The guilt comes from the accurate perception that you're not recovering, combined with the inaccurate belief that this is your fault, that you should be able to sleep normally if you just tried harder or had more discipline. But nervous system states aren't chosen through willpower. You can't think your way into ventral vagal safety any more than you can think your way out of a panic attack. The shutdown is happening at a level below conscious control in the primitive brainstem structures that govern survival, and until those structures receive new information that the world is safe, that waking life is manageable, that your system has the resources to meet its demands, they will keep choosing shutdown. These patterns follow you into adult relationships and professional life with frustrating consistency. You cancel plans because you physically cannot get out of bed, and your friends begin to stop inviting you, interpreting your absence as disinterest when really it's disability. You struggle to maintain employment because even jobs you care about become impossible when your body demands 12 hours of unconsciousness. Romantic partners grow frustrated with your unavailability, with mornings and afternoons lost to sleep, with the sense that you're choosing something else over them when really you're not choosing at all. You're coping with a nervous system that perceives waking life as threat. The identity you develop becomes organized around this pattern. You're unreliable, you're the flaky one, you're the person who can't handle what everyone else seems to handle fine. And because the mechanism is invisible, because nervous system shutdown doesn't show up on blood tests or brain scans, because it lives in the space between psychology and physiology, you have no framework for understanding it as anything other than personal failure. Beneath the practical problems of excessive sleep, the missed obligations, the social friction, the career limitations, there's a layer most people never admit to carrying. Shame. Not guilt about specific instances of sleeping through important events, though that exists too, but a deeper, more pervasive shame about what your sleep patterns seem to reveal about who you are as a person. In quiet moments, you suspect that other people are right, that you are lazy, that you are wasting your life, that you lack the fundamental character required to participate in the world the way adults are supposed to. You watch people on social media documenting their productive mornings, their disciplined routines, their ability to show up consistently, and you feel the gap between their lives and yours as evidence of deficiency. The shame isn't just about sleeping. It's about what sleeping seems to mean, that you're not strong enough, not motivated enough, not enough, period. In a culture that treats productivity as virtue and rest as something that must be earned through adequate output, excessive sleep becomes a moral failing. We valorize the hustle, the early morning routine, the ability to function on minimal sleep as if it's a superpower rather than a stressor. We've internalized the capitalist logic that human value is measured in productive hours, That time spent unconscious is time wasted unless it's the bare minimum required to maintain efficiency. When you sleep all day, you're not just deviating from a medical norm, you're violating a cultural commandment. And because the culture offers no framework for understanding nervous system shutdown, no language for what happens when a human being has exceeded their capacity for engagement, your sleep gets interpreted through the only available lens: character flaw, laziness, self-indulgence, avoidance, the absence of the discipline everyone else supposedly possesses. But shame thrives on misattribution, on taking something that has a complex physiological and psychological origin and reducing it to a story about character. Here's what's actually true. Excessive sleep isn't laziness. It's a nervous system state, not moral failure, biological protection, not weakness, a survival response to conditions that exceeded your capacity, not avoidance, strategic withdrawal from a world that has asked more than you had to give. Your body isn't sleeping because it lacks discipline. It's sleeping because it lacks safety, because it's operating from a threat detection system that was calibrated in an environment where vigilance was necessary and shutdown was the only respite available. You're not failing to wake up properly. You're succeeding at a kind of survival most people never have to master: the ability to go so deeply offline that your system can achieve the distance from threat it desperately needs. Nothing is wrong with you. Something happened to you, likely long ago and possibly repeatedly, that taught your nervous system a specific pattern of regulation. That pattern is now outdated, causing more problems than it solves, making your life smaller than you want it to be. But it isn't you. It's a strategy your body learned when it had no other options. And here's the crucial reframe. You're allowed to sleep as much as you need to while you work on building different options. You're allowed to honor what your body is telling you even while you also pursue healing. You're not broken. You're adapted to circumstances that required adaptation, and those adaptations are now visible in a context where they don't quite fit. That's not deficiency. That's the human story of carrying childhood forward into adulthood, of surviving first and figuring out how to thrive later. For many people, sleep serves a straightforward function. It restores the body and brain after a day of activity, consolidates memories, clears metabolic waste, and prepares the organism for another cycle of engagement. This maintenance, essentially necessary, restorative, but ultimately in service of waking life. Sleep happens so that productivity can happen. Rest happens so that contribution can happen. The purpose is external, forward-facing, directed toward what comes next. And for people whose nervous systems operate from a baseline of safety, this model works fine. They sleep, they wake, they engage, and the cycle sustains itself without breaking down. But excessive sleep isn't about restoration for tomorrow. It's about regulation right now. When you sleep all day, your energy isn't going toward external productivity. It's going toward internal survival. Your nervous system is working constantly to discharge accumulated stress, to lower activation levels that have climbed too high for too long, to create the conditions where cellular repair and emotional processing can occur. The space that looks empty to outside observers, the hours spent unconscious seemingly doing nothing, is actually occupied by complex neurobiological processes. The downregulation of cortisol, the rebalancing of neurotransmitters, the integration of experiences that couldn't be integrated while you were activated. This isn't absence. It's presence directed entirely inward, toward the mammoth task of maintaining equilibrium in a system that hasn't experienced true equilibrium in years or possibly ever. Neither path is superior. The person who sleeps 8 hours and conquers their to-do list isn't morally better than the person who sleeps 14 hours and survives another day with their nervous system intact. What matters is whether your relationship with sleep is serving your life or limiting it, whether it's a choice you're making from a place of awareness or a pattern that's making choices for you. And if you're reading this recognizing yourself in the descriptions, chances are it's the latter. Chances are you want something different, more flexibility, more capacity, more life on the waking side of consciousness. That wanting doesn't make your current sleep pattern wrong. It makes it worth understanding, worth working with, worth gradually expanding beyond as your nervous system learns that wakefulness can be safe, that engagement doesn't have to mean overwhelm, that you can participate in life without disappearing from yourself. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the childhood origins, the nervous system adaptations, the protective function of shutdown, the cultural shame that makes it all harder to bear, a different narrative emerges. The story isn't person who can't wake up properly. The story is person whose body learned profound self-protection in the absence of external protection, whose nervous system chose survival over comfort, whose excessive sleep is actually evidence of a brilliant biological system doing exactly what it was designed to do under impossible circumstances. You're not broken. You're someone who learned to regulate through shutdown because no one taught you regulation through connection. You're someone whose capacity was exceeded and whose body responded by creating distance from demands. That's not pathology. That's adaptation. And understanding it as adaptation opens the door to something shame never could: the possibility of change. People who sleep all day aren't lazy, depressed, or lacking willpower, though they might also experience depression as a secondary consequence of chronic nervous system shutdown. They're people whose bodies are completing a regulation cycle that was interrupted earlier in life, people whose systems haven't yet learned that safety is possible in waking consciousness, people who are carrying a nervous system state that made sense in one context but is now limiting their access to the fullness of life they deserve. And here's where hope enters. Nervous systems are not fixed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural pathways, means that the patterns learned in childhood can be gradually unlearned and replaced with patterns that serve you better. It requires the right support, usually therapeutic intervention that works directly with nervous system states rather than just thoughts and feelings. And it requires patience because these patterns were carved deep. But change is possible. This might mean somatic therapy that helps your body learn what safety feels like. It might mean trauma-informed approaches that address the original experiences that created the shutdown pattern. It might mean gradually expanding your window of tolerance, the range of activation your nervous system can handle before it tips into shutdown, so that waking life becomes less overwhelming. It might mean medications that support nervous system regulation while you do the deeper work. What it definitely means is releasing the shame, because shame is activation, and activation is precisely what your system is trying to escape. You can't heal a nervous system by flooding it with self-judgment. You heal it by meeting it where it is, acknowledging what it's trying to do, and slowly, carefully introducing new experiences that teach it something different. That you can be awake and still be safe. That engagement doesn't have to mean exhaustion. That you deserve a life where consciousness isn't a threat. If this video put words to something you felt but never quite articulated, if you've been carrying shame about sleep patterns that felt beyond your control, if you've wondered why your body keeps choosing disappearance when your mind wants presence, you're not alone. Millions of people move through the world with nervous systems calibrated to threat, spending their days trying to explain something they don't entirely understand themselves, caught between the desire to engage and a body that keeps choosing shutdown. I'd love to hear your experience. Drop a comment and share. What does your relationship with sleep look like? And what do you think it's been trying to protect you from? What would change if you stopped seeing excessive sleep as laziness and started seeing it as communication from a part of you that's been trying to survive? And if you want more conversations like this about the quiet patterns of the human mind, about the ways our bodies carry stories we've never spoken, about the space between pathology and adaptation where most of us actually live, consider subscribing to this channel. We explore these spaces together, without shame, without judgment, with the understanding that being human is complicated and that the things we've learned to see as brokenness are often just unfinished survival. You're not too much. You're not too little. You're exactly enough, even when your body needs more rest than the world says it should.